Some people are just born pollution, and they shouldn't be allowed to contaminate the air of their betters. Amelia Vanderbilt Blackwood's voice, sharp and cold as breaking ice, sliced through the opulent air of the Boston Preservation Gala. A torrent of crimson, a $500 Domaine de la Romane Conti, erupted from the bottle in her hand, exploding across the cream-colored silk of Isabella Rossi's gown. The wine, dark as blood, soaked into the delicate fabric, a violent stain on quiet elegance. As if on cue, her daughter, Chloe Vanderbilt Blackwood, drove the razor-sharp heel of her Louboutin stiletto directly onto Isabella's phone, which had slipped from her grasp. The screen spiderwebbed into 1,000 glittering shards on the polished marble floor. "Oh dear, did I just break your little burner phone, you ghetto rat?" Chloe's laugh was a tinkling, cruel melody. Her father, Lawrence Blackwood, a man whose tailored suit cost more than a car, gestured lazily to a pair of burly security guards. "Please, drag this filth out of here before its stench infects our children." Their son, Spencer, a vapid Adonis with a cruel smirk, held his phone aloft, the screen glowing. He was live streaming. "Everyone, get a good look," he narrated to his followers, his voice dripping with condescending amusement. "We're watching a live disposal of human garbage. We're already at 2,000 viewers and climbing. Let's see how high we can get it." Have you ever witnessed an act of bullying so brazen, so public, that you couldn't look away? What you're about to hear is the story of the most expensive act of public humiliation in modern history. Before we dive in, make sure you are subscribed to Black Voices Uncut, with notifications turned on, because the ending to this story will shatter everything you think you know about power. Now, let's get back to it. Isabella Rossi stood motionless, a statue at the center of a storm of her own degradation. The wine seeped through the silk, cold against her skin, the ruins of her dignity on full display for a growing audience, both in the room and online. Slowly, deliberately, she reached into her small, unassuming clutch. Her fingers, steady and sure, closed around a cool, heavy piece of platinum metal. A business card holder so exquisitely crafted, so understated in its luxury, that most of the guests in this room of immense wealth wouldn't even be able to identify it. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was perfectly level, a calm sea in the midst of their hurricane of contempt. "What an interesting evening." The Vanderbilt Blackwood family exchanged smug, self-satisfied glances. They were peacocks, displaying their brilliant plumage of cruelty, utterly oblivious to the fact that they were taunting not a sparrow, but a slumbering dragon. They had no idea what was coming. Have you ever been so profoundly underestimated that a single quiet phone call could detonate the very foundations of your tormentor's world? The grand ballroom clock read 9:47 p.m. There were 13 minutes until the keynote speech, where Lawrence Blackwood was scheduled to announce a new $20 million wing for the city's children's hospital, a monument to his family's manufactured benevolence. The crimson stain on Isabella's chest continued to spread, a blooming flower of shame. Amelia Vanderbilt Blackwood, the matriarch of this viper's nest, began to circle her prey, the clicks of her Manolo Blahniks echoing like gunshots against the marble. Her voice, amplified by the room's acoustics, was a performance for the assembled Boston elite. "Chloe, darling, be a dear and fetch this creature a towel from the kitchens. That's where it belongs anyway, with the help." Chloe's laugh, again, that sound of breaking glass. "Mother, don't be absurd. That vintage Romane Conti is utterly wasted on something that probably drinks wine out of a cardboard box. What a tragic waste of a perfect vintage." A loose circle of nearly 200 of Boston's wealthiest citizens began to form, a modern-day coliseum. Phones, like tiny digital swords, emerged from Hermes Birkin bags and the inner pockets of Armani suits. The spectacle was too delicious to ignore. Lawrence Blackwood spotted the gala's manager, a harried-looking man named Marcus Wells, and waved him over with the imperial authority of a king summoning a courtier. "Marcus," Lawrence boomed, "this individual has clearly wandered in from the wrong entrance. Staff access is through the service corridor in the rear. See to it." Wells, clutching a tablet to his chest like a shield, scurried across the floor. His face was a mask of professional panic. "Ma'am," he began, his voice tight with anxiety, "I am terribly sorry for this confusion. This is a $10,000 per plate event. Could I please see your invitation?" Isabella's fingers once again found the sanctuary of her clutch. The expensive wine had miraculously missed it. "Of course," she said, her voice still unnervingly calm. "Don't even bother checking," Amelia interrupted, her voice a venomous drip of contempt. She gestured wildly at Isabella's dress. "Just look at it. That dress is a discount rack nightmare. And those pearls? My God, they're pathetic. This is clearly charity fraud. She probably snuck in to steal the silverware." Spencer held his iPhone at the perfect angle, ensuring his live stream audience caught every humiliating detail. The viewer count climbed relentlessly. 2,400, 2,600, 2,947 people watching live. The comments flooded the screen in a torrent of digital cruelty, faster than he could possibly read. "Get her out of there! Elmo, that wine stain shows her true colors. Ghetto trash. Security should tase her for trespassing. Lol, she thought she could blend in." "Everyone say hello to our uninvited entertainment for the evening," Spencer announced to his followers, a carnival barker presenting his freak show. "Looks like the help had a little accident and spilled wine all over themselves." So embarrassing for her. He panned the camera from Isabella's wine-soaked dress up to her face, zooming in for a tight close-up. He expected tears, fear, shame. Instead, he found an unnerving stillness, an expression as placid and unreadable as deep water. The silence in the ballroom stretched, becoming taut and uncomfortable. It was Amelia who broke it, her words crafted with surgical precision to inflict the maximum damage. "You know what I find truly fascinating?" she asked, addressing the growing crowd. "The audacity, the sheer, unmitigated gall. To crash our event, to ruin a $500 bottle of wine, and then to just stand there, as if you actually belong in this room." She turned, a grand orator, playing to her audience. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is a perfect example of what happens when charity becomes too accessible. Standards disappear, the rabble gets in." A ripple of murmurs went through the audience. A few uncomfortable, sycophantic laughs. Someone whispered, "Shouldn't someone call the police?" Lawrence raised his champagne flute, a crystal beacon for all to see. "A toast, everyone," he declared, "to maintaining standards." In a chilling display of unified elitism, 50 crystal glasses lifted in unison. The message was as clear as the champagne they held. We are the chosen, you are the other, and you do not belong. Deep inside her clutch, Isabella's phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number, an encrypted line. "Ma'am, the live stream is trending number 4 nationally. Should I intervene?" "David." She typed back a swift, single-handed reply. "Not yet. Let them dig the hole a little deeper." Marcus Wells, the beleaguered manager, cleared his throat nervously. "Ma'am, about that invitation—" "Marcus?" Amelia's voice sharpened to a razor's edge. "Surely you can see this situation requires an immediate and decisive resolution. Our donors should not have to be subjected to this spectacle." Isabella reached into her purse again. This time she withdrew the small platinum folder. As she opened it, The brilliant chandelier light caught the metallic sheen. "Here is my identification," she said quietly. Wells reached for it, but Amelia, in a move of pure theatrical drama, intercepted it with a loud gasp. "Oh my God, everyone, you have to see this." She held up Isabella's business card holder for the crowd. "She's counterfeiting premium accessories now. This is a criminal offense." The crowd, drawn by the drama, pressed closer, their phones angled for better shots of the unfolding execution. Chloe snatched the card holder from her mother's hand, examining it with a connoisseur's disdain. "Is that supposed to be Cartier?" she sneered. "The engraving is completely wrong. How tragic. The fakes they sell downtown are better than this." With a flick of her wrist, she tossed the platinum case onto the wine-stained marble. It landed with a metallic clatter that echoed through the suddenly silent ballroom. Isabella's phone buzzed again. The caller ID read, "Legal Department. Priority 1. She declined the call. 10 minutes, Lawrence announced, consulting his Patek Philippe with a flourish. "Our uninvited guest has precisely 10 minutes to find the exit before we involve the Boston Police Department." The countdown had begun. Amelia stepped closer, so close that Isabella could smell the cloying scent of her Chanel No. 5, a fragrance that suddenly seemed to smell of rot. "Let me explain something to you, dear," she whispered, her voice a venomous secret shared with the world. "This room represents 400 years of American excellence. The Mayflower, the Founding Fathers, steel, shipping, banking, innovation. You," she gestured dismissively at Isabella from head to toe, "represent nothing." Her voice rose again, taking on the cadence of a history lecture for the benefit of the surrounding phones. "My great-grandfather founded one of the first shipping empires in this very city. My husband's family practically built the financial district. Our children, Chloe and Spencer, will inherit legacies that have shaped this nation." She leaned in, her whisper loud enough for every camera to capture. "What will your children inherit? Debt? Dysfunction? The same cycle of failure that brought you here tonight, begging for scraps at our table?" The cruelty was surgical, precise, designed to inflict wounds that couldn't be seen bleeding. On Isabella's wrist, a detail lost in the chaos, her own watch caught the light. It was a Patek Philippe Grandmaster chime. In the crowd's feeding frenzy to document her humiliation, not a single person recognized the $2.5 million timepiece on her wrist. Her phone vibrated with another encrypted text. "All 8-47 contracts ready for immediate review. Singapore acquisition on hold, pending your direct authorization. P. Kim, General Counsel." Isabella typed back a simple command. "Execute Protocol 7 in exactly 8 minutes. Authorization. Thunderbird." Spencer's live stream had now crested 3,200 viewers. The comments were no longer just cruel, they had become creative in their sadism. Someone call animal control. There's a stray in the ballroom. This is why we need walls. LOL. She probably has a GoFundMe for her dry cleaning bill already. 7 minutes, Lawrence announced, his voice booming with finality. Amelia turned to the crowd with a theatrical flourish, the master of ceremonies at a public execution. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's give our unexpected guest exactly 7 minutes to find her way to the exit before we have her professionally removed." A chilling countdown began to ripple through the audience, like a twisted version of New Year's Eve. Some held up their fingers, laughing. Others checked their Rolexes and Cartiers, synchronizing their timepieces for the final moment. 7 minutes, 6 minutes, and 30 seconds. Isabella stood in the center of it all, wine-stained, surrounded, and seemingly powerless. She checked her phone one last time. The screen showed a single encrypted message. "All systems green, legal standing by. Ready on your signal." Patricia Kim, Rossi Global Ventures. Isabella slipped the phone back into her clutch, and, for the first time that evening, she smiled. It was a small, almost imperceptible smile, but it was just enough for the cameras to catch. She had absolutely no intention of leaving. The clock read 9:58 p.m., 12 minutes until the keynote. Jennifer Reeves, the hotel's general manager, materialized beside Marcus Wells like a battlefield commander arriving to a losing fight. She surveyed the scene, the wine, the shattered glass, the encircling crowd, with the practiced eyes of someone trained in crisis management. "Ma'am," she addressed Isabella, her tone carefully neutral, the kind reserved for diffusing situations that could lead to lawsuits. "I see there's been a beverage incident. Perhaps we could escort you to a private suite to arrange for alternative accommodations for the evening." Isabella's response was immediate and crisp. "I appreciate your high standards of hospitality. Wine service is, after all, everything in this industry." Amelia's laugh rang out, sharp as shattering crystal. "Finally, someone who understands quality control. Jennifer, remove this contamination immediately." The word, contamination, rippled through the crowd like a virus. Phones tilted for better angles. The digital audience was ravenous. Spencer's live stream counter blew past 4,200 viewers. His commentary had escalated into a full-blown performance. "Guys, this is absolutely insane," he narrated. "Rich people charity drama hits different, you know? We've got hotel management, private security on the way, and this lady just refuses to leave." He panned his camera across the sea of expectant faces. "Like, seriously, lady, read the room." The comments were a waterfall of vitriol. "She has main character syndrome. Just drag her out by her cheap extensions. Call the cops already. Trespassing. This is so uncomfortable, but I can't stop watching. Why won't she just go? Is she mentally ill?" The time was 10:00 p.m., 10 minutes until the keynote. 4 men materialized from the corners of the ballroom. They were not the hotel's usual security. These men wore black suits with discreet earpieces and the unmistakable bearing of private contractors, the expensive kind. The lead guard, a man built like a refrigerator compressed into formal wear, approached Isabella with measured, deliberate steps. "Ma'am," he said, his voice a low rumble, "I'm going to need you to come with us. Quietly. There's no need to make this more difficult than it already is." The circle of guests tightened. 70 people now, all holding their devices, all documenting. The modern Colosseum had reached its full capacity. Chloe Vanderbilt Blackwood, savoring the moment, beckoned a server with a flick of her imperial fingers. "Champagne," she commanded. "Bring the Dom Perignon. We need to celebrate the importance of maintaining our event's vintage quality." The server, wide-eyed, hurried away and returned with a tray of crystal flutes filled with golden, bubbling liquid. Chloe distributed the glasses to her family and a select few guests from their inner circle. "A toast," she announced, her voice loud enough for every phone to capture it. "To exclusive vintages and exclusive events." Like a forest of glass spears, 30 crystal flutes rose in unison. The visual was devastatingly powerful, a shimmering wall of wealth and privilege, held high like weapons, against one lone woman in a stained dress. Isabella stood perfectly still in the center of their circle. The darkened fabric of her gown clung to her chest like an admission of guilt. Her phone buzzed. It was David again. "Ma'am, the wine incident is now trending number 2 nationally on Twitter. CNN has picked up the live stream. Should I deploy crisis management protocols?" she typed back. "Not yet. Let them reach the peak." Lawrence Blackwood consulted his watch with theatrical gravity. 8 minutes remaining. Perhaps we should expedite this process." He gave a curt nod to the lead security guard, who stepped forward with an air of professional finality. "Ma'am, I need you to surrender your phone and come with us immediately. This is private property, and you are creating a public disturbance." Isabella's fingers found her clutch one more time. "May I make one phone call before we proceed?" "Absolutely not," Amelia interjected, her voice sharp and final. "No phone calls, no delays, no more drama. Security, escort this person out of the building, now!" The 4 guards moved, forming a tighter perimeter. The crowd surged closer, a wave of bodies eager to witness the final act of destruction. Isabella could smell the collective breath of 70 people, a mixture of champagne and contempt, as they watched her world prepare to end. 10:02 p.m. 8 minutes until the keynote. The ballroom's massive screens, which had been displaying a tasteful slideshow of the Foundation's work, flickered to life with the Vanderbilt Blackwood Foundation logo. Preparations for the keynote speech were beginning. Staff hurried along the periphery, setting up microphones and adjusting lighting, but nobody moved toward their seats. Why watch a boring speech when the real entertainment, a live social execution, was happening right here? Amelia turned to address the crowd, her voice filled with the unshakable confidence of a woman who had never been told no. "Do you know what this represents?" She gestured at Isabella as if she were a museum curator explaining a particularly distasteful exhibit. "This represents the complete and utter breakdown of social order. When standards disappear, chaos is what follows." Her voice gained momentum, feeding on the rapt energy of her audience. "Our grandparents built this country through discipline, excellence, and, most importantly, knowing one's place. This generation," she sneered, "they believe participation trophies qualify them to compete in the championship games." A smattering of applause rippled through the crowd. Someone shouted, "You tell her, Amelia!" Inside her clutch, Isabella's phone vibrated. The caller ID read, "Singapore office, urgent." She declined the call. Lawrence raised his champagne flute higher. 7 minutes. Surely our professional security team can remove one disruptive individual in 7 minutes. The lead guard, taking his cue, reached for Isabella's arm. "Wait," Isabella said. Her voice was so quiet, so calm, that it cut through the noise of the room like a blade of pure silence. Every head turned. Every phone readjusted its focus. "I understand your position completely," she continued, addressing the guard but speaking to the room. "But I believe there has been a significant miscommunication regarding my presence here tonight." Amelia's laugh could have shattered the crystal chandeliers. "Miscommunication? The only communication that needs to happen now is you walking out that door, preferably in handcuffs." 10:04 p.m. 6 minutes until the keynote. Isabella's phone buzzed again. This time she glanced at the screen. The message was brief. "All wine import systems ready. Legal clearance confirmed. Authorization code accepted. Standing by for execution. Patricia Kim, General Counsel." She looked up, her gaze sweeping across the circle of faces surrounding her. The phones, recording from every conceivable angle. The security guards, tensed and ready to move. The Vanderbilt Blackwood family, holding their champagne like victory trophies. "I really do need to make that phone call now," Isabella said. Her tone hadn't changed, but something else had entered her voice. A note of steel, of finality, that made the lead security guard pause, his hand hovering inches from her arm. Chloe, emboldened by the champagne and her own cruelty, stepped forward, the golden liquid sloshing in her glass. "No phone calls, no delays, no She stopped mid-sentence. Isabella had pulled out her phone. With deliberate, unhurried precision, she was scrolling through her contacts. The security guards exchanged uncertain glances. Their job was to remove disruptive guests, not to wrestle phones away from women in evening gowns, no matter how stained their dresses were. Amelia sensed the hesitation in the air and moved to fill the leadership vacuum. Officers, I am personally authorizing you to use whatever force is necessary to remove this trespasser from my event immediately. The Vanderbilt Blackwood Foundation will cover any and all legal complications that may arise. Isabella found the contact she was looking for. Her finger hovered over the call button. 10:06 p.m. 4 minutes until the keynote. The ballroom had gone completely, unnervingly silent. The only sounds were the hum of the ventilation system and the distant clatter of dishes from the kitchen. Even the live stream comments had slowed to a trickle, as if the entire digital world sensed that the story was about to take a dramatic turn. Isabella looked up from her phone, her eyes meeting the gazes of those around her. The tensed guards, the smug family, the 70 breathless guests. "You know," she said quietly, her voice resonating in the stillness, "wine is supposed to bring people together. It's a symbol of celebration, of community, of a shared humanity." She gestured to the ugly, dark stain on her dress. "You've managed to turn it into something hideous." Amelia's eyes flashed with triumph. This was the moment of the kill. "More philosophical nonsense from the gutter. Officers, remove this person immediately." Isabella pressed the call button and activated the speakerphone in one smooth, fluid motion. The phone began to ring, the sound echoing through the cavernous ballroom. 10:07 p.m., 3 minutes until the keynote. "Patricia," Isabella said into the phone, her voice calm and clear before anyone on the other end could even answer. "I'm at the Vanderbilt Blackwood Foundation event. I need you to execute Protocol 7, immediately." The phone was still ringing. Amelia, realizing what was happening, lunged for the device. "Give me that!" But it was too late. The phone connected. A crisp, professional voice, amplified by the speaker, filled every corner of the ballroom. "Rossi Global Ventures Legal Department. This is Patricia Kim, General Counsel. How may I assist you this evening, Ms. Rossi?" The name hung in the air. An atom bomb of revelation. Rossi. The champagne flutes stopped clinking. The phones stopped recording and started Googling. Isabella spoke clearly, her words carrying like a death sentence to the silent, stunned room. "Patricia, please execute immediate termination of all Vanderbilt Blackwood Group wine import contracts. Authorization code Thunderbird 7. Abhomptron." Amelia Vanderbilt Blackwood's champagne glass slipped from her suddenly numb fingers and shattered against the marble floor. The time was 10:07 p.m. It was the phone call that would echo through the financial world for decades. Patricia Kim's voice, amplified through the phone's speaker, continued with the calm, surgical precision of a seasoned executioner. "Ma'am, to confirm, that includes 847 active wine import contracts with the Vanderbilt Blackwood Group, valued at approximately $1.2 billion annually. Shall I proceed with immediate termination?" The words hit the Vanderbilt Blackwood family like a physical blow. The color drained from Amelia's face, leaving her expensive makeup looking like a grotesque mask on a bloodless canvas. Her hands began to tremble, her fingers sticky with champagne, grasping at nothing. Lawrence's Patek Philippe, the watch he had brandished like a scepter just minutes before, slipped from his wrist and clattered against the marble floor, the sound of a falling empire. Chloe's mouth opened and closed soundlessly, like a fish gasping for air in a poisoned pond, and Spencer, the live streamer, captured it all. 4,847 viewers watched the exact moment when the predators realized they had cornered the wrong prey. Isabella's voice remained as steady as bedrock. "Yes, Patricia. Execute all termination protocols immediately, and while you're at it, please cancel the Vanderbilt Blackwood Foundation's preferred vendor status across all Rossi Global Ventures subsidiaries, effective immediately." The crowd of 70 guests stood frozen, their phones still held aloft, but their hands were shaking. Someone in a Chanel suit whispered the name Rossi Global Ventures. The woman next to her was already Googling, her thumb flying across her screen. Her gasp was audible across the room. Forbes lists her net worth at $4.7 billion. 10:08 p.m. Reality, cold and brutal, came crashing down. Wait! Amelia stammered, her voice cracking like thin ice. You can't be— Isabella turned to face her directly, the crimson stain on her dress no longer a mark of shame, but a badge of war. Isabella Rossi, CEO of Rossi Global Ventures Wine and Hospitality Empire. She let the words hang in the air for a moment. The contamination you were so concerned about removing from your event? The 4 private security guards took an instinctive step back. Their training covered many things, but manhandling a multi-billionaire who could buy and sell the security firm they worked for 10 times over was not one of them. You don't rough up that kind of power, not if you want to keep working in this city or any other. Patricia's voice continued from the speakerphone with devastating efficiency. Ma'am, for your information, the Vanderbilt Blackwood Group's wine division represents approximately 23% of their total annual revenue. This action will trigger immediate and severe liquidity concerns for their entire portfolio. Lawrence finally found his voice, a desperate, strangled sound. Ms. Rossi, Isabella, there has been a terrible, terrible mistake, a complete misunderstanding. Has there? Isabella's tone remained conversational, yet it carried the chilling weight of a judge's gavel. Because I recall your exact words quite clearly. Disgusting parasites shouldn't contaminate decent people. Did I misunderstand the meaning of that particular phrase? Spencer's phone trembled in his hand. His livestream comments were exploding in a supernova of shock and awe. Holy suit, she's a billionaire. This is the most expensive bullying video in history. They are so kinkconned. Delete the stream, bro! Delete it now! Someone screen record this now! 10:09 when so on so fine. The wine empire reveals itself. Isabella walked calmly over to where Chloe had contemptuously tossed her platinum card holder. She picked it up, brushing away the tiny fragments of crystal from Amelia's shattered champagne glass. This isn't a counterfeit Cartier, she said, holding it up so it caught the brilliant light of the chandeliers. It's custom. Rossi Global Ventures Executive Platinum. There are only 12 of them in the entire world. She opened it slowly, revealing business cards that seemed to be crafted from precious metal. Patricia, she said, her voice still carrying throughout the silent room, could you please explain to our audience here tonight exactly which vineyards Rossi Global Ventures owns? Patricia's voice filled the ballroom like a legal briefing being read at a state funeral. Certainly, Ms. Rossi. The Rossi Global Ventures wine division owns controlling interests in 23 French chateaux, including Chateau Margaux, Chateau Latour, and Chateau Petrus. We also currently control 67% of California's premium Napa Valley wine production and 34% of Italy's Chianti Classico exports. The second champagne glass, the one Chloe was still holding, fell from her nerveless fingers, joining its shattered predecessor on the marble floor, a floor that now looked like the site of a massacre. That Domaine de la Romanée Conti you so generously spilled on my dress? Isabella's voice now carried a faint hint of amusement. My vineyard in Bordeaux produced it. The bottle cost you $500. The vineyard that made it. I bought that for $847 million in 2019. The crowd had gone completely silent, the only sound being the rapid-fire clicking of phone cameras capturing every frame of this astonishing reversal of fortune. Marcus Wells, the gala manager, was frantically texting, his face the color of pale parchment. The parent company that owned this very hotel chain was a subsidiary of Rossi Global Ventures. His career was over. He just didn't know how long it would take to die. 10:10 p.m. The true depth of their mistake becomes horrifyingly clear. Isabella's phone buzzed. She glanced at it casually. That's interesting. Patricia, it appears that CNN, Fox News, and The Washington Post are all requesting immediate statements regarding tonight's events. Should I take their calls? Ma'am. Patricia's voice carried a note of professional concern. I should also mention that Mr. Blackwood's and his family's comments have been captured on at least 47 different live streams and have been uploaded to multiple social media platforms. They have a combined reach of approximately 2.3 million views in the last 8 minutes alone. Chloe finally found her voice, though it was barely a whisper. Ms. Rossi, please, we didn't know. Didn't know what? Isabella's question hung in the air like a guillotine's blade. That I was a human being who deserved a basic level of respect? Or just that I had the power to respond to your hospitality? Her phone screen lit up with another incoming call. The caller ID was visible to everyone in the front row. Jeff Bezos. Personal. Isabella declined the call, but not before letting every single one of them see it. Patricia, while we're on the line, let's quickly review the Singapore acquisition. The $890 million renewable energy project that has the Vanderbilt Blackwood Group listed as the primary contractor. Amelia's legs nearly buckled. Lawrence had to grab her arm to keep her from collapsing onto the marble floor. That single project represented 34% of the Vanderbilt Blackwood Group's projected revenue for the next 3 years. Patricia's voice continued its clinical, devastating assault. The termination clause in that contract allows for immediate cancellation with 48 hours' notice for any breach of professional conduct standards by a primary partner. 10:11 p.m. The final, crushing pieces fall into place. Isabella's executive assistant, David, appeared as if summoned from thin air. He was flanked by 2 individuals in impeccable dark suits, each carrying a leather portfolio. The legal reinforcements had arrived. Ms. Rossi, David said, his voice quiet but audible to everyone in the silent room. Your 9:30 a.m. meeting tomorrow with the UN Climate Council has been moved to accommodate tonight's situation. They've expressed a keen interest in hearing your perspective on corporate accountability and ethical conduct in the hospitality sector. Amelia finally spoke, her voice breaking into a desperate sob. Ms. Rossi, Isabella, please, I am begging you. There are thousands of jobs at stake. There are pension funds, families who depend on our company. Isabella studied her for a long, silent moment. The entire ballroom held its collective breath. You're right, Amelia. There are families at stake, thousands of employees who depend on the Vanderbilt Blackwood Group for their livelihood. She paused, letting the weight of her next words settle. Which is exactly why I am willing to have a conversation with you about how this situation can be resolved. She turned to address the crowd of stunned guests, many of whom were now discreetly trying to hide their phones while simultaneously Googling Rossi Global Ventures. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe there's been a significant miscommunication this evening. I came here tonight as a donor and a partner to support the important work of the Vanderbilt Blackwood Foundation. Instead, I have witnessed behavior that fundamentally contradicts the very values that make charitable work meaningful. Her voice carried the effortless authority of someone accustomed to addressing boardrooms and international committees. However, I have always believed in the power of education over elimination. I believe in accountability over simple destruction. Patricia's voice cut in from the phone one last time. Ma'am, I have the termination documents prepared and legal teams in 12 different jurisdictions standing by. Do you want me to proceed with full contract cancellation across the board? Isabella paused, deliberately, letting the immense weight of that question settle over every person in the room. Amelia was openly weeping now, her mascara running in dark, pathetic streams down her face. Lawrence looked as though he had aged 10 years in the last 10 minutes. Chloe stared blankly at the wine-stained marble, the place where her family's empire was cracking apart at the seams. And Spencer's live stream, which had reached a staggering 6,200 viewers, was now broadcasting the most expensive lesson in humility in the history of social media. "Patricia," Isabella said finally, her voice clear and decisive, "hold all termination orders." A collective sigh of relief, most audibly from Amelia, swept through the ballroom. "I want to give the Vanderbilt Blackwood family an opportunity to demonstrate to the world that tonight's behavior was an aberration, not a true reflection of their corporate values." The relief on Amelia's face was palpable. "However," Isabella continued, her voice hardening just enough to turn their blood to ice, "this opportunity comes with several very, very specific conditions." 10:12 p.m. The terms of survival. Isabella gestured to her assistant, David, who immediately produced a tablet, its screen glowing with crisp financial data. He held it so that the front rows of stunned guests could see the damning information. "Let's begin by reviewing the full scope of our business relationship," Isabella said, her voice carrying the practiced authority of a CEO who had dismantled competitors with spreadsheets and market analytics. The tablet displayed a comprehensive breakdown that made Amelia's face go even whiter. Vanderbilt Blackwood Group. Dependencies on Rossi Global Ventures. Wine imports and distribution, $340 million. Whereas annually. Hospitality equipment and leasing, $185 million. Annually. Renewable energy partnerships, $156 million. Annually. Real estate joint ventures, $92 million annually. Total annual revenue dependency, $773 million. 23% of your group's total annual income, Isabella stated, as a simple matter of fact. "Patricia, could you please explain the legal mechanisms that are available to us under our current agreements?" Patricia's voice cut through the ballroom with the sharp precision of a scalpel. All 847 active contracts include Clause 47B, termination for cause. This can be invoked in the event of a material breach of professional conduct standards that reflect negatively on the reputation or brand integrity of Rossi Global Ventures. Lawrence Blackwood's instincts as a corporate lawyer finally kicked in, cutting through his panic. "Ms. Rossi, that clause was designed to address supply chain violations or financial fraud, not personal disagreements at a social event." Isabella's smile was colder than a Boston winter. The clause specifically mentions public behavior by partners or their principal officers that brings the brand integrity of Rossi Global Ventures into disrepute. Your son's live stream, which I believe is now trending #1 worldwide, along with the testimony of nearly 200 witnesses in this room, would likely qualify as sufficient evidence. I have 47 independent live streams, too, 3 million social media impressions, and a growing list of trending hashtags to support my case. She turned to address the crowd again, which had swelled to nearly 100 guests, all of whom had abandoned their assigned seats to get a front-row view of this masterclass in corporate warfare. "Ladies and gentlemen, you have all witnessed what happened here tonight. The question is no longer about what they did. The question is whether the Vanderbilt Blackwood family can demonstrate, through concrete and measurable actions, that their behavior was an aberration, rather than a true reflection of their corporate and personal values." 10:14 p.m. The ultimatum. Isabella's phone lit up with another call. This time she answered it on speakerphone without even glancing at the caller ID. "Maya, darling, I have just seen the most extraordinary footage on social media." The voice was unmistakably British, smooth and aristocratic. "Is everything quite all right over there?" Amelia's eyes widened in horrified recognition. Even in her insulated world, she knew that voice. Baron Rothschild, Isabella said calmly. I find myself in the middle of handling a small business etiquette situation at the moment. Would it be all right if I rang you back in an hour? Of course, my dear, of course. Though I must say the rather dreadful footage of those people throwing wine at you has put me quite off the Vanderbilt Blackwood account. Perhaps we should discuss alternative partnerships for the Bordeaux Consortium when you have a moment. Isabella glanced at Amelia, whose mascara-streaked face now resembled a tragic portrait of complete financial ruin. Let's discuss that shortly, Baron. Thank you for calling. She ended the call and turned her full attention back to the shattered family before her. As I was saying, you have choices. 2 choices, to be precise. David handed her a second tablet. This one displayed a formal document bearing the Rossi Global Ventures letterhead. Option 1, she began, is what I am calling the Comprehensive Accountability Program. She read the terms aloud with the cold, dispassionate precision of a prosecutor delivering a list of charges. 1. A full public acknowledgement and formal apology from each individual member of the Vanderbilt Blackwood family, to be published in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and the Washington Post at your own expense within the next 72 hours. Amelia opened her mouth to object, but Isabella continued without pausing. 2. An immediate donation of $2 million to the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund, sourced directly from the profits of the Vanderbilt Blackwood Wine Division. Chloe's gasp was audible. That single donation represented nearly a quarter of their wine division's annual profit margin. 3. Mandatory unconscious bias and sensitivity training for all Vanderbilt Blackwood Group executives to be conducted by the Diversity and Inclusion Institute at Harvard Business School. This is non-negotiable and will be completed within 90 days. Lawrence's hands were shaking as he reached for his phone, no doubt attempting to calculate the astronomical public relations costs. 4. A public commitment to measurable diversity targets, specifically 30% minority representation in all executive and board-level positions by December 2026, with quarterly progress reports made publicly available for review. The crowd murmured, this time with a tone of appreciation. Several guests were now discreetly taking notes. 5. The establishment of the Rossi Blackwood Hospitality Ethics Fund, a $10 million endowment funded by you to support minority-owned businesses in the wine and hospitality sectors. A sob escaped from Amelia before she could suppress it. I'm not finished, Isabella said, her voice unwavering. 6. All Vanderbilt Blackwood Group hospitality venues worldwide will immediately implement the Rossi Protocol for Bias Incident Reporting, which includes anonymous reporting systems for both employees and customers to report any incidents of discriminatory treatment. She paused, letting the full weight of the requirements sink in. Option 1 allows Rossi Global Ventures to continue all current contracts, while my team monitors your strict compliance with these accountability measures. 10:17 p.m. The nuclear option. Isabella scrolled to the second document on the tablet with a deliberate theatrical slowness. Option 2, she said, her tone suggesting that its simplicity was not a virtue, is significantly simpler. I call it the complete business divorce. It involves the immediate termination of all 847 contracts within 48 hours, per the professional conduct clauses you all signed. As she spoke, Patricia's voice joined hers from the phone, creating a terrifying stereo effect of corporate devastation. Cancellation of $34 million in prepaid wine shipments with absolutely no refund provisions, Patricia stated. Loss of exclusive access to all Rossi Global Ventures vineyards, which will affect 67% of your premium wine inventory, Isabella added. Termination of the Singapore Renewable Energy Project, representing a loss of $890 million in projected revenue over the next 3 years. Patricia countered. And finally, Isabella concluded, looking up from the tablet to meet Amelia's desperate, pleading eyes, a public statement from Rossi Global Ventures explaining the termination of our multi-billion-dollar relationship is due to a fundamental and irreconcilable incompatibility of corporate values. She let that sink in. I should also mention that Rossi Global Ventures has active partnerships with 847 other companies, including Tesla, Microsoft, Amazon, and Google. The combined partnership value is $2.3 trillion annually. David stepped forward with a third tablet. Ms. Rossi, you have 7 urgent calls on hold from Fortune 500 CEOs who are asking about the live stream footage. They're asking if the Vanderbilt Blackwood Group's values align with their own. Should I conference them in? The threat was clear, elegant, and utterly devastating. Isabella didn't need to destroy the Vanderbilt Blackwood Group directly. She could simply let her global business network know that the family considered discriminatory and cruel behavior to be an acceptable part of their corporate culture. The market would do the rest. 10:19 p.m. The decision point. Isabella's phone buzzed with a text message, the preview visible to the front row. UN Ethics Committee requesting emergency session to discuss corporate accountability standards in the global hospitality sector. Office of the Secretary General. That was the final blow. Amelia Vanderbilt Blackwood, the proud, cruel matriarch, fell to her knees on the wine-stained marble. Her $10,000 Valentino gown pooled around her like a puddle of her own defeat. Ms. Rossi, Isabella, I'm begging you. Her voice broke completely. I choose option 1. I choose accountability. I am deeply, truly, and profoundly sorry for what happened here tonight. She dissolved into racking sobs. I was wrong. Completely and horribly wrong. You did not deserve any of that treatment. No one deserves that treatment. Lawrence stepped forward, his corporate composure finally cracking under the immense pressure. Isabella, Amelia speaks for all of us. We choose option 1. We will comply with every single one of your requirements. Chloe nodded frantically, tears of terror and regret streaming down her face. I'm so sorry, Ms. Rossi. I'm so sorry for everything I said. Spencer had completely abandoned his live stream, his phone now face down on a nearby table like a murder weapon he desperately wanted to hide. Isabella studied their shattered faces for a long, silent moment, the entire ballroom holding its breath. Words are important, she said finally, but actions are what matter. She turned to her team. Patricia, prepare the option 1 compliance documents immediately with full legal monitoring provisions. Right away, ma'am. Standard Rossi Global Ventures accountability protocols with mandatory quarterly reviews? Yes, Isabella confirmed. Full transparency, public tracking, and Patricia, include performance bonds. If they fail to meet a single one of these requirements, the financial penalties should be severe enough to reflect the seriousness of their commitments. Amelia's relief was visible, but so was the dawning, terrifying understanding in her eyes. This was not mercy. This was a managed execution. 6 months later. The transformation. The headline on the front page of the Wall Street Journal read, "The Wine Incident, How a Public Shaming Reformed Corporate America." The feature photo was of Amelia Vanderbilt Blackwood, her hair pulled back simply, serving lunch at a homeless shelter in Houston. Her once perfectly manicured hands were now ladling soup into plastic bowls. Isabella Rossi sat in her corner office overlooking the Manhattan skyline, reviewing the quarterly compliance report David had just prepared. The numbers on the screen told a story of a systematic and profound transformation, one that had rippled out far beyond a single arrogant family. Vanderbilt Blackwood Group, 180-day compliance report. The data was nothing short of remarkable. Amelia had already completed 127 of her required 200 community service hours, working with 3 different organizations that served underprivileged communities. Her public apology videos had generated over 12.3 million views across all platforms and were now being used as case studies in corporate accountability communications at business schools. Chloe Vanderbilt Blackwood, once the embodiment of cruel privilege, had established the first minority-majority executive board in the history of the oil and gas industry. Her mandatory Harvard bias training had been so transformative that she had become a guest lecturer at the school, sharing her personal story of change with MBA students who now studied the wine incident as part of their required curriculum. Lawrence's formidable legal expertise had been completely redirected. He was now the primary author of The Blackwood Standards, a comprehensive anti-discrimination and inclusion framework that 247 Fortune 500 companies had already voluntarily adopted. His personal journey from a silent enabler to a vocal advocate had been documented by the Harvard Business Review in a widely read 3-part series. Even Spencer had found a new purpose. He had converted his massive social media following into a platform for promoting corporate accountability. His new series, Privilege Check, where he interviewed other executives who shared their own stories of biased behavior and transformation, had reached 2.1 million subscribers. The Rossi Protocol had expanded exponentially. Isabella's phone buzzed with a text from Patricia Kim. UN Ethics Committee just voted unanimously. The Rossi Protocol is now a mandatory requirement for all companies seeking international trade certification. 89 countries are now participating. The wine incident had triggered something unprecedented in modern history, a set of global corporate accountability standards with real, enforceable consequences. Companies could no longer issue hollow, PR-scripted apologies. They now needed to demonstrate measurable, monitored, and transparent change. David knocked and entered with a stack of new partnership requests. Ms. Rossi, we've received 1,247 new partnership applications this quarter alone, all from companies wanting to demonstrate their commitment to the Rossi Protocol. Tesla wants to expand our battery technology collaboration. Microsoft is requesting a consultation on ethical AI development. And Apple wants you to deliver the keynote address at their annual Diversity and Inclusion Summit. The crimson stain that had marked Isabella's dress that night had become a symbol not of humiliation, but of radical transformation. Fashion magazines had declared the wine dress to be Time's fashion statement of the year, not for its designer label, but for what it represented: dignity under fire and the strategic reclamation of power. The Vanderbilt Blackwood Foundation had undergone a complete renaissance. Amelia's face appeared on Isabella's office monitor for their scheduled video conference. The background behind her showed a diverse, vibrant staff working at their desks, a stark contrast to the lily-white, elitist charity gala of 6 months ago. "Isabella," Amelia said, her voice carrying a deep, genuine humility that would have been impossible to imagine that night. "I wanted to update you personally on our progress. The Rossi Blackwood Hospitality Ethics Fund has just approved its first 23 grants, totaling $3.7 million, to minority-owned wine and hospitality businesses across the country." Isabella could see the change in Amelia's eyes. The brittle arrogance was gone, replaced by something that looked like true purpose. "The impact has been extraordinary," Amelia continued, a note of pride in her voice. "We've helped create 847 new jobs, supported 156 minority-owned businesses, and established mentorship programs in 12 states. Our annual donation total has increased by 340% because the public trusts that our transformation is real." The numbers represented real, systemic change, not just corporate theater. By choosing strategic patience over emotional revenge, Isabella had achieved a result that was far more powerful and lasting than simply bankrupting one family. Instead of destroying them, she had transformed them into powerful agents for the very change she wanted to see in the world. What Isabella Rossi demonstrated was the profound difference between an emotional reaction and an intellectual victory. She could have destroyed the Vanderbilt Blackwood family that night with a single word. Instead, she chose to rebuild them. And in doing so, she created a blueprint for systemic change that would protect thousands of future victims from the same kind of humiliation she endured. As we end this story, I want you to think about the power you hold. Every single person watching this has witnessed discrimination, whether in a boardroom, a restaurant, a classroom, or a social gathering. You always have a choice. You can remain a silent bystander, or you can become an agent of accountability. Have you ever witnessed bias in a professional setting? Your experience matters. Share your story in the comments below and help us document the patterns that need to be addressed. Subscribe to Black Voices Uncut for more stories that prove strategic empowerment can always defeat destructive prejudice. Remember the lesson of the wine incident. Isabella didn't destroy her attackers. She transformed them into her most effective allies. Strategic patience creates permanent, systemic change, while emotional revenge creates only temporary, personal satisfaction. When you face discrimination or witness it happening to others, which path will you choose? The wine stain is long gone, but the lesson is eternal. Share this story. Subscribe for more, and go out and transform your world.